Welcome back to the Dividend Diplomats YouTube channel. You got your boys here, Laney and Bert, the Dividend Diplomats. Guys, today we are talking to you about what could be a very intriguing alternative to our VYM and SCHD ETF buys. Buckle up. We're going to talk about this ETF that is putting up a case for why you may want to consider it over the other two dividend giants.
We'll have to see about that. But before we do, smash that subscribe button. Give Bert, the Hurt, and Lanny a nice thumbs up here, guys. Another dividend stock ETF, another dividend growth ETF. And as Bert says, does it hold a lick to SCHD, the Chuck Schwab dividend ETF, or the Vanguard high dividend ETF, SCHD or VYM? This one, we're going to look at a few metrics, right, Bert, to really compare the three.
Yeah, that's right. In this fund, it's obviously, this is all fun and games in all seriousness. The goal is to find the best stocks, the best ETFs
Fun
that
and
fit your
games until
portfolio.
somebody gets hurt, Bert.
Yeah, we're not getting hurt. We're not getting hurt unless you're buying Leggett and Platt, unless you're buying some of those other ones, Cracker Barrel, some of the other companies that cut the dividend, NYCB, some great individual stocks.
Walgreens.
Oh, how could I forget about Walgreens? It's sad when I don't even remember that Walgreens cracks the top three. But individual stocks can be tricky. It can be hard to find the winners. It takes a lot of time to monitor. So that's why lately we've been looking towards ETFs to take some of the burden of doing the research and finding the individual dividend stocks off our plate. So we want to see what other options are out there besides SCHD and VYM.
Let's fricking do it. And the question is, Bert, do you own this ETF here?
No, I do not. What about you, Andy?
I do not either. So when we intro this ETF, I want you guys to just let us know if you guys own this ETF, if you're testing the waters with this ETF.
Yeah.
And if not, are you SCHD or are you Team VYM? You got to let us know that in the comments as well.
Yeah, I will say this as a teaser for something we're going to talk about later, though. We do own a lot of the top 10 stocks that are in this ETF. So who is this? Who is this, Laney? Who is this ETF? Whoo, we're heading
Let's
up
step into the Blackrock territory here.
Blackrock's territory. We're going with the iShares Core High Dividend
Wow.
ETF, ticker symbol HDV. HDV, high dividend, I'm assuming, is it? I love the correlation there. So who is this ETF? They have 81 holdings. And the investment objective from BlackRock's website, the iShares Core High Dividend ETF seeks to track the investment results of an index composed of relatively high dividend paying US equities.
Why don't they just say our goal is to beat SCHD?
Yeah, that's pretty much what I'm reading here. Why would you pick HDV from their website? Exposure to established high quality US companies, number one. Number two, access to 75 dividend paying domestic stocks that have been screened for financial health. And number three, use at the core of your portfolio to seek income. I see what they did there. I see what they did there. It sure sounds to me like ChatGPT wrote this objectives here for iShares because it's pretty generic if you ask me.
81 holdings, though. This is less than SCHD and definitely less than 25% of the holdings of BYM.
Yeah.
So the lower quantity of individual stock holdings, again, ETF basket of stocks. The question is, Bert, when you peel back the layer of, okay, 81 companies, what is the composition? How much weight is dedicated to the top 10 companies in HDV?
And this is what's interesting about it. It's over 50%. 51.96% are concentrated in the top 10 holdings. And as you go down the list, Lanny, the top two carry a lot of weight, and the top two are the titans in their sector. Number one, ExxonMobil with 8.4%. Chevron's number two is 6.83%. So right there, their top two holdings are major oil companies with 15% of the total mix for HDV.
And then, kind of like the next big category is you really step into the healthcare, because the, fourth, fifth, and seventh spot are healthcare pharmaceuticals. and they take up about 15%. And that's J&J, AbbVie, ABBV, and Merck, MRK.
Yeah, and tobacco has a nice presence in there. The top 10 has Philip Morris, Altria are in that top 10 too. So you can see why it gets the name high dividend, because the sectors that they're doing well in: oil, healthcare, tobacco, and then there's also Verizon in there, which we didn't even mention. So that's 51.896% of the holdings. What's the yield here, Lanny? What kind of yield is HDV pumping out with a top 10 that looks like that?
It sounds like their 30-day SEC, yield, according to their website, it's about 3.85%. And Bert, that's higher than both of the ETFs that we look at, SCHD and VYM.
Yeah, that's right. So they have less holdings, higher concentration in the top 10 than both VYM and SCHD. And they have a higher dividend yield than both of them. So it checks some interesting boxes. And the question is, Lanny, this is a question that we always ask when you see a higher dividend yield: what does that dividend growth look like? Because that's a
Oh,
great,
this is
yeah.
the shock right here where,
Mhm.
the 1 year growth rate is 12.67%, double digits. Love it, dig it. The 3 year average dividend growth rate is 8.61%. Dig it, love it.
Mhm.
The 5 year average dividend growth rate for HDV, 10.25%. Dig it, love it.
Yeah, so it's a high 3% yield and a double digit dividend growth rate. It checks some interesting boxes, and those metrics put it in the ring and in contention with SCHD and VYM, both which pass similar yield combos, yield and dividend growth combos.
But now, when it comes to actual price appreciation,
Mhm.
price performance,
Hmm.
this is where it gets a little interesting because, Bert, what is the year to date, the 1 year, and the 5 year performance for HDV?
Year to date, 7.51% increase. 1 year, 14%. 5 year is 19%. So how does that stack up against VIM, Lanny?
VYM is year to date 7.86%, 1 year 18.7%, and 5 year 41.03%.
Hmm. In SCHD, year-to-date performance is 4%, 1 year is 15.6%, 5 years, 53.73%.
So longer term, SCHD has performed better when you look back to 5 years. Um,
Yeah, but
yeah,
yeah, I mean, it's VYM beats it in all three. Like, so you can say VYM has the better performance year to date, better performance HDV for the 1 year, and the 5 year. HDV's only beaten SCHD in year to date in 2024. So it's
yeah,
interesting.
pretty interesting. So obviously, because when you look at the names in the portfolio, Altria and Philip Morris aren't stock price movers. Neither has been, when I look at this list, J&J has been relatively flat the last year, trading around at 145 to 150. Verizon's been up and down between low 30s, mid 30s. Yeah, very interesting.
Yeah. So the one thing to mention too is they also have a low expense ratio. It's below 10 basis points. So it's very much in line with how VYM and SCHD manage those low expense ratios too.
So the question is this ETF better than SCHD or VYM? Bert, what's your take?
No, I
Ooh,
don't. It's not bad though. I'll say this. If you are a BlackRock fan and you are in the BlackRock family, it's a great core bucket of high dividend paying stocks, especially when you look at that top 10. It's interesting to me how concentrated that top 10 is. 52% of their of their holdings are in those top 10, Lanny. That is eye-opening. I thought SCHD was high with 40%. Imagine this one with 52%.
yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's obviously a concern, from a risk of concentration standpoint. What we didn't cover though, if I actually pull it up really quick as well, um, is, when you think about the expense ratios to some of these ETFs, I'm pretty sure what SCHDs and VYMs are at around the same, maybe 6 basis points. Somebody correct me in the comments. I should know that by heart. Now, the expense ratio for HDV is a little bit higher at 8 basis points.
Yeah, I know we mentioned earlier it was less than 10, but it is good to see it like comparatively that it's not, it's a little more expensive to pay for this. So it's interesting because it's less holdings. So higher
Yeah.
expense ratio for less holdings.
Very interesting, guys. So, what's your take? Do
Mhm.
you own HDV? Are you trying to go for that banger of a dividend yield? Are you chasing yield with HDV? Do you believe that over time this one could hold some ground against the VYM and SCHD? Let us know in the comments.
If you haven't already, subscribe to the channel, give this video a thumbs up, and remember, if you're not with us, you're against us, Jack.
That was Bertha Hurt Locker and Lanny from the DD over and out.